With the changing of the times, a lot of us have some difficulty changing with them. Adapting, I should say. We kindred are creatures of tradition after all, and change is the antipathy of tradition. So most of us, almost every clan, has struggled with keeping up with the times. We usually have a lot of infighting when there is change to be made, and the young almost always resent the old. There is one clan, however, that has flourished with the changing of the times, almost to the point where their modern ones are unidentifiable from their ancient predecessors. I am referring to the clan of rebels, the Brujah, perhaps Brujah, Brujah. It is a clan with many different pronunciations. I believe there is an actual Spanish word that is the same, meaning witch, but its vampire incarnation is actually unrelated to that word. Nevertheless, it is the clan that has gone through the most change than any others when it comes to their core identity. It is almost a direct contradiction to what they used to be throughout their history. But I will get to their history in a bit later. For now, I wish to get into how they act in the modern nights. See, in many ways, and to many people, they are seen as the leaders of the Anarchs, despite not being the founders. They are the face and most active members of the sects in modern night, and the clear reasons to see is that they have always been the face of discourse and debate, but in the more recent nights they have turned into a more group of, shall I say, punk and anarchists. They are now commonly seen with leather jackets, spiky hair, and the will to keep fighting. Oh, give me a break. In many ways, they are not above your common thugs. They have become much of a fighter's clan, so to speak, the first to throw a punch and to cause a scene. In fact, almost all of the modern Brujah are known for this reputation. If one shows up, there is going to be trouble, even if they do not cause it directly. You can trust them to be like this too. It is a very reliable character trait of theirs. But with that being said, I would very much want one of them on my side when things go down. They have this sort of reputation for a reason. They are decent fighters. Most of them are quite young too. Most of the elder Brujah are long gone, or perhaps in hiding somewhere, maybe in torpor. Many reasons they are distinctly modern in their culture. The oldest of their number that are around today were the ones that originally turned Anarch in the first place. And I assure you, they are behind almost every single Anarch movement throughout history. It tends to follow them, but this is a bizarre contradiction. See, a lot of them hold very modern values, but the thing is they didn't start the Anarchs. A different group entirely did, the Gangrel, but they've almost latched onto it and claimed it as their own. Actually, they tend to be behind almost every revolution throughout human history as well. Their origin almost always starts with the Brujah. They are very much bleeding hearts, not just for each other, but for the mortals as well. They always have to press the moral issue and scold you for keeping the likes of ghouls or using your powers to manipulate the mortals too much. In fact, almost all of them bring up any excuse for the idea of another utopia, where kindred and kind live together in harmony. Ugh. Them and their bleeding hearts annoy me at almost all times, but deep down, I think they know this is a stupid fallacy. If they truly wanted what was best for humanity, they would kill themselves. We are not like humans. We are leeches, parasites, that take every resource we can and give nothing back. If humans are to flourish, we are to die. But I don't care about humans. But, to be fair, they are true to one another, and any loyalties they make along the way. If a Brujah says they are on your side, they almost always will stay by it. This also means that a lot of them are going to have the back of each other, or rally behind one another if they are in danger. And to be fair, they are surprisingly good at speeches and making their points clear. Even with their changes to modern times, they have largely kept their ability to debate. It's just a shame that they've sacrificed their ability for reasoning and listening, and are never willing to change their mind. But truly, they think the world in a utopia state, as previously mentioned, is possible, and ignore that every single time it has been tried in the past, it has failed miserably. And I find it kind of immoral if we were to rule out in the public with an iron fist, and I see that the way things are truly the best for everyone. It is better to not know the thumb that is squishing you, as to not resent it. Luckily, I think most Brujah now see the wisdom in this, and just want to be left alone, something I completely understand. Then again, it's actually quite hard for them to stay out of trouble regardless, and that's not just because of their bleeding hearts. They are just naturally more likely to get heated in the moment. This is the common bane that their clan shares. Their blood is just so susceptible to rage. They are less likely to be able to stop their beast in a heated moment, and more likely to start a war over a personal slight or a petty insult. I don't bring them to meetings for this reason, and suggest you do the same in important matters. But the historical clan is almost nothing akin to their current one. In every single regard imaginable, they used to be known as the Learned Clan, or the Clan of Scholars, and they were very much a high clan, welcome among any noble courts. Their clan symbol was even different back then too, though this change was slow, and not as clear as you'd think. But I'd like to begin the tale of their history with the first, or should I say the first two antediluvians. This is where it starts to get a little confusing. Ever since their conception, they were upstarts and rebels, but I will begin with the simpler story. When the second generation first embraced one, they were known as Brujah. If not as scripture is to be believed, their name was Ilias. But they were not long-lived. As though they sired a few, they were very swiftly diablerized by their first childer, Trolley, who has been around for longer than Ilias ever has. And almost everyone only knows of Trolley. That is due to their own indoctrination. In fact, very, very few descend from the original antediluvian before the Diablerist. But this Diablerist guided their clan for long history, and they were just and wise, of course, like most antediluvians were, and following in suit, they left very shortly after during ancient history. But the last act they did was found a city known as Carthage. This is where some stories start to contradict each other. Just know that it is a very ancient city, and it was home and haven to them, where they ruled openly, known to the people and the humans below them. Supposedly, they were just. The older Brujah that survive still say that it was the best time and the perfect utopia for all beings, both kindred and kine alike. In truth, it was little more than a den of degeneracy, where the innocent were killed on a whim, and kindred demanded blood often, especially of those unwilling to give it. They used to sacrifice babies to dark gods, for crying out loud. But some modern venture, especially those with an agenda, will tell you that their puppet state Rome attacked them to free them of this horrible nature, and to give them honest virtues again. This is also not true. We are not moral creatures, and should stop pretending to be so. They attacked simply because they wanted more power. And after the First War, many Brujah, especially the younger ones, came to see their utopia was not really true, and wanted to turn ship. And about halfway through the Second Punic War, they did so, joining sides with the Ventru under Rome, forsaking their own elders. See, they've always been like this, forsaking their own elders just for the slight of old personal grudges. They were actually co-rulers after this, something very surprising of the Ventru to give up so much willing power. But they did respect each other fairly, even after this war, because they were both high clans of regal and nobility. But when Rome fell, unlike the Ventru, sadly the Brujah never truly recovered. They tried a few things here and there, but very rarely were there any of note, until a little thing known as socialism started, and they flocked to it full-heartedly. They stood behind the movement very quickly, putting a lot of funds into the USSR, helping forming it as we know it. But it didn't take long for them to start to hate the government, and want to tear it down just as quickly as they set it up. See, they say the mortals behind it betrayed its ideals very early on, but most of them stayed in places like Russia, slowly spreading their influence. The oldest Brujahs seem to be there, but they can now be found all over the world. I heard their second most common place is the Americas, believe it or not. I also hear this explains why the Anoks have taken so much of a stronghold there. So now I'd like to get into their powers, and how they manage to maintain their reputation so truly. They are near unmatched fighters, with very little tricks up their sleeves that are considered foul play. If you think of honor-bound warriors, they might fight the same way they do. So, they have the disciplines of potence, celerity, and presence, and they use them quite simply, but to great effect. I'll explain now. So, to start with maybe the most simple discipline, potence is the power of supernatural strength. This can be used to kill things quite efficiently, ending mortals with a single swift punch, that sort of thing. Throwing cars over your head, punching holes in walls. It's very efficient, if simple, but they can also use them in some tactical ways too. Some apply their strength to their legs in order to do a soaring leap into the air for massive distance while being hard to hit. A good example of this power is the time a white was threatening the Masquerade, a vampire that has lost all sense of humanity. I, alongside other powerful members of the Camarilla, had to go wipe it out. As soon as it saw us, it knew it could not win the fight, so elected to flee. We cornered it into an alleyway, but it proceeded to punch its way through wall after wall, running through several homes before we could catch up to it. We dropped a metal sheet wall to stop it, but in the end that proved no help either, for it just punched its way through that as well. In the end we had to use fire, the best tool to deal with our kind. They also have the power of celerity. This is the one I fear the most. This is in short the power of super speed, running so fast it seems like you can teleport, having agile grace, leaping from one part of a building to another to be at the rooftop within seconds. The power is a bit more demanding on you, making you hungrier than others, but I find it is well worth the sacrifice. The Brujah, having this alongside their raw strength, can be unmatched in a fight, charging at you at awful speeds and punching with the weight of a truck before you can fully blink. Some are so fast that it is impossible to even attempt to dodge, let alone register the attack is happening. This is an absolutely terrifying combination if they are armed with a wooden stake. I have seen firsthand how devastating this power can be, although I didn't actually register it. There was an elder Brujah who was still a member of the Camarilla, who was so skilled in this aspect, I am deeply terrified of her. I remember a moment the two of us were attacked by 6 Sabbat shovelheads. One moment I saw a giant, brutish monster charging, the next nothing. A red mist in the air and sliced cloves on the floor. I'm told later what she did was run at them with such immense speeds with a fucking katana and slice them into pieces before eating the chunks of their flesh so fast I didn't even know it was happening. Truly gruesome beyond belief, and I'm almost glad I didn't see it. And lastly, a bit of an odd one at first perception, is the power of presence, which is emotional manipulation of those around you, as well as altering your own, shall I say, aura. This is their primary tool when they're making themselves more appealing and agreeable when rallying others to their cause, but also just as commonly used in intimidation. Presence can make you so mortifying that you freeze in place, making you a perfect target for one who is super fast and strong. When they're persuading others, it's usually subconscious, as they're not really willing to alter free will of others, something they don't really tend to do, it just happens naturally. But intimidation is free game. Once I was in the fetid and horrid place known as the sewers, don't lord it over me, but there I was attacked by a being I could not begin to describe. the height of several men, a mishmash of limbs and body parts, truly a horrible vistage. But behind me, it saw something that scared it, and started running, for there was a Brujah down the hallway. I have never seen something so terrifying, yet so afraid before. It was running for its life by what looked like a little girl, no older than 16, that couldn't have been any taller than 5'4". The sight was funny, if a little confusing, and in truth she was actually a lot more intimidating than she first looked. But the Brujah, after all is said and done, are a clan to endure. Anarchists, but with a hint of noble scholarship still in their nature. Bleeding hearts and rebels with a cause. At least they'll tell you there's a cause behind it all. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. But, till next time, mate, fellow traveller. Have a good day.